Hey folks, welcome to Friendly Orbit, the podcast that draws us together no matter how far we fly. I'm Ceres, ready for you to take my love, take my land, and shit all over it. And I'm joined by...
Thea, more confused than ever.
Thea, the curse is broken. We get to watch good cinema on TV now.
No, my reign is over. Well, I had said 3 movies, and 3 movies we did. Now the tyranny of Ceres begins.
Tyranny? No tyranny. I want to watch good stuff together. But,
Sounds like tyranny to me.
Where to start? Not only does a ton of stuff come out every year, but there's so much that's already been produced. And, unlike we are led to believe by the movie-making industry, it's really not a disposable medium. There's many old movies that are incredibly good, and many old TV shows that are still incredibly good.
And we don't have infinite time.
Yes. And second problem, you start a show, it sucks, and now you have to watch the rest of it.
Well, not really, unless it really hooked you.
Because you've committed to, in some sense.
No.
You've decided, yes, I'm going to watch this show.
No.
But now you're not going to watch it. You've already told all your friends, hey guys, I'm watching this show now. And they say, how's the show? And you're like, I don't want to watch the show anymore. Now you have to commit to it.
I mean, I've done it once with a show that is like my trash. But, in general, I don't think that I've done it.
Alright, shut up.
Okay, sorry, you finish your bit.
No more of these problems. I have designed a simple framework for us to do episodes and review shows. It's extremely simple. It's called Watch or Botch. We trial run about 1.5 hours of a TV show, and at the end, we talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and we give a recommendation. Are we going to keep watching it, or was it a botch? Guilt-free. No commitment to keep watching. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Just for listeners to know, Game of Thrones takes a lot more than an hour and a half to get bad.
Obviously, we can't, fail safe. We're not going to watch the whole fucking show. We can't fail safe that nothing bad ever happens in the show. Obviously, it's actually something we can update in the plugs. We can be like, hey, I continued watching this. And
but as scientists, don't we learn that if we can't do something perfectly, we might as well not try to improve at all?
I would say treat the start of every season as a watch or botch, right? Yeah. So we're going to do season 1 of these shows, right? And you at home just watch or botch the first 2 episodes of every following season.
Don't watch or botch BoJack Horseman. It gets better.
Well, I feel like, I like BoJack Horseman a lot, but I feel like generally speaking, I'm not a fan of the argument of a show gets better. It's like, yeah, but some shows, they start off good and they end good. So let's watch those.
That's true.
But for our first series, I feel like Watch or Botch is extremely easy. We can bring this back a bajillion times. For our first run of Watch or Botch episodes, I have a theme built in. It's old sci-fi television shows.
Okay. When you say old, what do you mean by old? Because Copernicus says old, and then they mean the 1990s.
Well, that's 30 years ago now. So, yeah, that would be old.
I don't know.
I mean anything that's 10 years or older, right? So old, obviously, in a colloquial sense. And, some stuff might sneak in that's a little newer. Depending on what you've already seen, I have a few candidates in the cloud. I have a statistical cloud of there's a few different candidates on my list that we could watch, but I don't know which ones you've seen already. So, we'll work around that.
I just want to say that I don't appreciate it by your definition. I'm old.
Yeah, because movies and TV don't age like humans do. They age differently, all right?
I don't know. I still wouldn't call The Hunger Games an old movie. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, 10 years is pushing it, right? That's the issue of a discrete variable or trying to create a discrete variable out of a continuous spectrum, right?
I don't know, man. I feel like in the 1950s, 10 years ago, a movie was old. But in the 2000s, after a century of movie making,
all right,
my definition of old doesn't incorporate 95% of movies.
Shut up! No more questions.
I want to bend the distribution consistently. You can't just put the 95% of movies into the old category and call it a day.
All right. What we're watching today is 22 years old. I hope that satisfies your definition for old television.
No.
Well,
television maybe.
I've seen it before. but it's been such a long time since I've seen it that I actually really want to rewatch it, and I want to show it to you. I want to get your opinion on it. I want to see if you like it.
Wait. So 22-year-old
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can. I'll give it a couple of guesses.
All right, I'll give you 2.
Okay. Firefly?
It's Firefly.
It's Firefly, of course. That's the.
All right. Firefly is a 2002 space western TV show that was on air for less than 4 months. It was made and canceled by Fox almost immediately, but not before 14 episodes were produced.
From what I know, it gathered a very big cult following after being canceled. Basically.
Absolutely. It had a huge fan following after being canceled, and there were fans who collected money, who protested, who wanted to show Fox in every way possible that they were huge fans of the show and they wanted to continue it. However, they didn't seem to watch it during the 4-month period that it was on TV. It's not like Fox made those decisions out of nowhere. You can go back. You can watch the numbers. How many people watched them? It was not well received at the time.
Sometimes things take a little bit to take off, but thankfully we live in the era of endless resuming of corpses and reanimating them of them.
Yeah, maybe Firefly will come back.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with Firefly as well as a watching experience as a viewer is that eventually all the fan support encouraged Joss Whedon and the other producers to actually, I quickly want to give credit because it's not just Joss Whedon, it's another guy too.
Yeah, maybe if there's other people to give credit to, don't give it to Joss Whedon.
Yeah, it's Tim Minear. So Tim Minear and Joss Whedon were both the executive producers on it. And
hey, 2 episodes in a row about people who were alleged to have sexual misconduct.
Yes.
Is this the theme of this?
So if you don't know, Joss Whedon doesn't have a squeaky clean reputation anymore as he did when I first watched the show. But anyways, the point I was trying to make is they made a movie. They actually made a movie about Firefly called Serenity that kind of wrapped up all the plot and told you basically where it's all going. So it's very interesting because the story unfolds in a slow, ponderous way, and then and that's all the rest of the story. If it squashed into the movie. But it's interesting because in a way, by knowing that, I feel like you can kind of, for me, rewatching Firefly, I can just enjoy the opening movement of a grand story, knowing where it eventually goes, knowing that the later seasons just happen not to exist. Yeah. You know what I mean? In a strange way, by knowing what the ultimate goals are, you can sit back and relax and just, hey, it's the first opening of the opera.
I feel like it might almost work as like a slow Silmarillion style introduction to the setting. It moves really slowly, and then you do the Lord of the Rings, which is like a movie, like with the pace of a movie. So it's like you're watching 14 episodes of like setting and exposition and setup, and then it all gets paid off in 1.5 hours.
I'm super excited to watch Firefly today.
Have you ever watched Firefly?
Yeah, I've watched all of it. I'm a huge fan of it. I really enjoyed it. I watched it with my mom and the rest of my family back in the day, but me and my mom really bonded over it. I feel like one of the really interesting things about it is it's sci-fi. It's an original sci-fi universe and story done in the last 20 years, right? Yeah. It's not another season of Star Trek. It's not yet another Star Wars movie, right? It's actually its own setting with its own ideas and its own things. And in some spaces is innovative. World building wise, it's not like anything all too unexpected, but genre wise, the way it mashes space and Western, I think it does it in an excellent way. So without further ado.
And it has Nathan Fillion?
Yes, it does.
Of course. If you're a property in the 1990s, if you're a movie, you have to have, what's the guy from The Mummy?
The wrong name popped into my head.
Yeah, okay.
Marlon Brando popped into my head. Nope. I was like, no, not him.
Not him.
He's like the least Marlon Brando human there is, if you think about it.
Yeah. But yeah, that guy.
Him or Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, I feel like that guy is literally like movie version of Nathan Fillion, or Nathan Fillion is TV. Brandon Fraser, Nathan Fillion just dominate. They were like the himbos of movie and TV of the 1990s or the 2000s.
But all that being said, power your engines and holster your revolver.
That means nothing to me, but from context clues, I think I know what you're talking about.
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, Thea, that episode was longer than I remembered it being.
I hated it.
Fuck. All right, so we watched the first episode of Firefly called Serenity.
Yeah.
It was an hour and 26 minutes long, so we didn't have time for a second episode in our Watch or Botch 1.5 hours.
Well, we didn't need to. It was 1.5 hours.
It was 1.5
We
hours.
watched 1.5 hours of Firefly. As far as I'm concerned, we
got
completed the assignment.
All right, so as a general overview, before we dive into specifically what we liked, didn't like, and other plot elements or whatever.
Want to do a summary?
Yeah, I want to do a brief summary. The idea of Firefly is that a found family of survivors on the fringe of society do bounty hunting and jobs and other odd jobs in a hostile solar system, while the central planets are dominated by the corporate and controlling alliance. The impoverished and remote outer rim resembles nothing so much as the old American West. And then our characters learn to overcome challenges and grow together as they deal with the hardships of the Outer Rim and run from their pasts, which will inevitably catch them. It's a space western. It's
a space western.
The space western in my life.
Okay, it's interesting because for me, not just like in my life, but like generally, the space western is Star Wars.
Yeah. So it's like Star Wars feels like a space western like a soft space western compared to this, right?
Yeah, this is much more. This one wears its inspirations much more in its sleeve.
Yeah.
Star Wars also takes inspiration from Flash Gordon, pulp sci-fi, and also from samurai movies. So obviously there's more inspirations there. This one is very much like we're taking two things and we're putting them together.
Yeah.
And those two things are 90s sci-fi and the Western genre.
Yeah.
So who do we follow?
We follow. Well, we start the episode with Malcolm Reynolds, our captain, and who's played by Nathan Fillion, and
not Brendan Fraser.
Not Brendan Fraser. And Zoe, who is also a famous actress. And it's one of the things I think is interesting about the show is how many of the actors and actresses of this cast ended up being faces you see in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Alan Tudyk and what is her name? I've lost it now. Anyways,
Madalena something.
It's Becca something, I believe. Let me find it. Morena, that's what it is. Morena Baccarin. And I was like swapping her name backwards in my head. Yeah, and Gina Torres, who played Zoe. So we have Malcolm and Zoe, and we see them fighting the doomed civil
losing war.
Yeah, in Serenity Valley, where they're being shot at, and they think they pull through to the very end for the cavalry to arrive, and they hear them overhead, but it's not. That's not who they're actually hearing overhead. It's the cavalry for the other side.
Yeah.
And we see them lose the Civil War, and we cut to the present, right? But even in this time, we take a little bit of time to characterize them, each her as like the strong stoic, like strong second to Malcolm, and Malcolm being a charismatic frontline leader who leads from the front line.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the present, and it's them stealing cargo.
Yeah, they're doing a job. They have a crew. They have a spaceship, a Firefly class ship.
Yeah.
They call it Serenity?
It's called Serenity.
It's called Serenity, of course. Because if you have a show like this, the first episode is the name of the ship.
Yeah. And they're digging out cargo from an abandoned freighter. They're basically like scavengers.
Yeah, they're scavengers. An alliance ship shows up. They manage to stay undetected until the ship actually gets really close to them, and then they have to essentially detonate or trigger a decoy and make a run for it.
A decoy distress call, the crybaby.
Yeah, they call it the crybaby. The alliance, they manage to basically they don't have faster than light travel, but they clearly have a mode of acceleration.
Yeah.
Which for a large ship is inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so they lose the alliance.
Yeah.
The alliance sends out a signal to all systems that there is a Firefly class ship.
Yeah.
So they're on the run.
Yep, they're on the run.
They're on the run.
But they have this cargo. But the problem with the cargo is it's imprinted somehow, so that it's recognizable and traceable by the Alliance government.
Yeah, it's especially like by traceable, it means that it carries them a mark
Yeah,
that says that it belongs to the Alliance,
yeah.
etched on every molecule of it. I don't know if that was literal or not, but it feels like it was meant to be literal.
It feels like it was meant to be literal, and it's a little like, huh?
Especially because the cargo is edible, we find out later. So it feels like you could just, if there was a chip, you could just bite that off.
But think about it. What if it's like, what if it's not, well, what if it is almost every molecule? What if it's just like, it has like carbon-13 content
Sure.
or something like that that makes it traceable? That's like,
that would be molecular.
Oh, yeah, so I was thinking about it. The whole episode, I was thinking, like, how could you do this? And I was like, I guess isotope tracing.
Yeah.
Like,
they could even just have slightly irradiated them so they give off a certain level of radioactivity. But yeah, anyways, so they travel to to the guy who paid them to do this job, who is Badger.
That guy's also a famous actor. He's a big role in Supernatural.
Mhm.
That's why I recognize him. Mark Shepard.
Yeah.
But he's been in a lot of other stuff too.
So Badger is like a small boss on a big planet.
Seedy underworld boss.
Yeah, he wants to appear. He dresses up like he's he's an important fancy
He wears
guy.
a tie with no shirt.
He wears a tie with no shirt, just around his neck,
Yeah.
straight up. Not even a cool, chill look where the tie is on his shoulders. Just straight up tied tightly around his neck.
I thought that was funny. I thought it was just a great 1 second characterization of his character. Like trying to be a businessman, not looking the part.
Yeah, not looking the part.
Yeah, so this is on Persephone. They fly to Persephone, which is like a planet or a moon or whatever. In this setting, it's basically like a solar system, and there's all sorts of planets and hundreds of moons, and they've all been terraformed.
Yeah. At this point, the crew splits up.
Yeah.
A group goes to sell to return the stolen goods and get the money for it.
Yeah.
The other ones are trying to, because they don't have a new lead, they try to pick up leads or pick up passengers that they can get some money from for a simple transport job.
We get introduced to the main villain of Firefly, which is poverty. Bone-crushing poverty. We got to keep this ship flying somehow.
Yeah.
We don't have the money for repairs. We don't have the money for gas.
So essentially, one half of the ship thinks that they are clean of cargo, so they start embarking civilians. And the other one has to essentially, after a very tense classic Western stalemate, like Mexican standoff, is that what they called?
Well, Mexican standoff is specifically 3 people pointing guns at each other. So I think the first thing you said is more accurate. Yeah, it's just a classic Western sort of standoff.
Yeah, at the end, basically, the captain has to back off and to accept to basically lose the job because the other guy is not happy about the fact that the Alliance has sent out this message. He has received it, and now and then this thing is marked.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of trace it back to him, and he doesn't want to pay for this for these bad goods anymore.
And he's probably going to report them
to the police
the second that they leave. And also a character who's important in this scene for the function he serves for the narrative is Jane, or Janeway. I think it's actually just Jane. I think Janeway is actually, I think I'm getting my wires crossed. I think that's the Star Trek captain. Anyways, I think his name's just Jane, with a Y, with a J and a Y.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's confusingly spelled. Anyways, he's kind of the asshole who's there a lot of the time to be too aggressive and too direct, for Malcolm to show off his more charismatic, subtler ways and wiser ways.
Yeah.
So Jane's the one who's doesn't want to stand down and wants to shoot Badger right there, even though they're surrounded by other people with guns and they're just going to get.
He's the loose cannon. He doesn't play by the rules. All that. I mean, none of them do. But
Jane is like an inexperienced loose cannon. Yeah. Right? I mean, he's like a teenager. I feel like in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he lashes out a lot. Yeah. He's impulsive. Yeah. So, but the other half of the crew is picking up passengers.
Yes.
Who are we picking up?
Well, I mean, we should talk about the other half of the crew first.
That's true.
We have Alan Tudyk playing Wash, who is the pilot, who's he's comedic, but also grounded in some way. He's the husband to Zoe. I feel like they make a really great couple on the show.
They seem nice.
And then there's Kaylee, who's the ship's engineer, and she's kind of like the child of the crew. I mean, it's all kind of a found family situation.
Yeah.
So she's not literally young enough to be anybody's child, but just
she's clearly the most innocent, and they have if we assume that these guys have been doing this for at least a year or two,
Yeah.
she was younger when they picked her up, and she is young.
Yeah, she's
She's
pretty
by
young.
far the youngest.
She's like, 20 something.
Yeah.
22 maybe, something
Yeah.
like that.
And the rest is like 30 to 40.
Exactly. And Kaylee's the whiz kid ship's mechanic, and she goes out and she's trying to collect people to.
Oh, but who's Alan Tudyk married to? Oh, yeah, you said it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I said
sorry,
that.
sorry.
Yeah. So that's the other half of the crew, and then they are introducing people to come on the ship, and we have a doctor who looks like he's about to buy property from someone named Count Dracula.
Yeah, like
As
he's a
Toya
Bram
put it.
Stoker. He's a Bram Stoker character through and through.
It is
He's a
funny though
Victorian.
because he is wearing like this old timey suit with the silk vest, and he's got those tiny little spectacles and they're
Yeah.
tinted red.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, to be fair,
Mhm.
if this aims to be a western,
Mhm.
this is a guy from that time.
Yes.
But it looks so out of place, and like later I realized it's not the old timiness per se.
Mhm.
It's that he's wealthy and clean.
Yeah.
He is.
And that's why when you said it, I didn't want to point that out
Yeah.
because it's like that's it. He
Yeah.
is wealthy. He is
Yeah.
clean. He's from the Central Planets. He doesn't look like he fits in on Persephone.
No, he's completely out of place, but he wants to. He's carrying a very big container.
Giant metal glowing container.
There's a giant glowing, ominous container.
Which is like, so this guy's suspicious as all get out, right? I mean, let's just.
Yeah, this guy is a character. If you ever see this guy is in a video game, this guy's an NPC with a quest for you.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy is not an extra.
Then we just have like a random guy with dorky hair who keeps bumping into stuff.
Yeah.
And he's on the ship, and then Kaylee specifically recruits a shepherd. A shepherd appears to be slang for a priest in this world, in this setting.
I mean, it's quite literally a synonym of pastor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
And our shepherd is called Book, and he's an old man, and people keep calling him Grandpa. And his sort of joke in the introduction thing is he says, "I never married," and they're like, "What?" And he's like, "So I'm not a grandpa."
Yeah.
And he gets his way on the ship by striking up a conversation with Kaylee.
I was curious about the marriage thing, actually.
Mm.
You like Protestant priests can get married.
Yeah.
So
I think so.
is the fact that I thought that he's never married? Oh, because he's a priest. But then I thought, is he Catholic or is it Protestant? What?
I think probably
He looked like Protestant the way he dressed.
I think he's probably Catholic, but I remember there was something to his backstory. I mean, he's not just what he seems in episode 1. Yeah. This is something they expand on. There's also
is Abbey is like when he said he left the Abbey. Is an Abbey strictly Catholic or are they Protestant abbeys?
It sounds pretty Catholic.
Sounds pretty Catholic to me, right?
I mean, raised as a full heathen, I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure it sounds pretty Catholic. But yeah, he so he makes his way on the ship.
The Abbey, the building of or buildings occupied by a community of monks or nuns.
Yeah,
and Protestantism doesn't have either of those.
Yeah,
you don't get all the cool like sub factions.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get the whole fantasy world building.
You don't get the extra outfits. Not for you.
Yeah. Or chastity rules. It's all.
Probably an upside. Anyways, he
not to the storytelling. It's
not. He makes his way on the ship by striking up a conversation with Kaylee, who remarks that he's just looking at the ships. He's not looking at where they're going. And he says, well, he's been outside of the world for a long time, and he just wants to be a part of it again. Mm-hmm. He also shows her that he only has a few credits, but he has something else he's willing to trade, and it's hidden in a box, and we don't get to see it. And she says, "Ooh, Grandpa," like it's like real contraband or something like that, something real special. And then he hits her with the "I never married."
Yeah.
So these are the characters we pick up on Persephone, and at the end of our discussion with Badger throws out a line that I love, because Reynolds says to him, "Wheel never stops turning," and he says, "That only matters to the people on the rim." And I love that, right? Because not only is it a clever way to like subvert the idiom, but it's like true of the solar system, right? What he's saying is that reciprocal relationships with one another and like the debts you have with others only matters to people on the rim, right? If you're from the center, if you have the money, if you're in charge, then what do you care about what the people around you want, right? And that's who Badger's trying to be. So I just always love that line because I feel like it's pithy, but it also it communicates well how he views the world, right?
Yeah.
And why he views it like that. Anyways, so because Badger is definitely about to tell the cops that we're here, we all back up on the ship.
And now we have stolen contraband, and a bunch of civilians.
Yes.
And the camera tells us that at least one of these civilians is up to no good. The doctor, you know?
Yes, but there's a
The
shot.
perfect
that's
storm.
Like, there's a shot that's like, this doctor is evil. So we head out into space.
Yeah.
And
We have lunch.
We have lunch, and we find out what the contraband was, the sick goods that Grandpa brought with him. What Book brought with him is real fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, cultivated at the Abbey.
Yeah, and they're...
We can deliciously fellatio in front of the camera with the strawberry.
It is funny. Kaylee takes a bite out of that strawberry like she's gonna come. It's a little weird, but the point they're trying to make is that fresh food.
I mean, it communicates the point.
Yeah.
The strawberry tip just makes it.
Yeah. But yeah, so the point is, out in space, you've got your nutritional supplements or whatever, but like nothing beats nice good food. And they sit down for a big family style dinner, and they talk to one another. And Jane is a total vulgar asshat, and Malcolm puts him in line and sends him away from the table. So we get more understanding of why Jane is the worst, which is a general thing for the show. He's just kind of the heel, right? He's kind of the heel of the show.
What's the name of the captain again? Malcolm?
Malcolm, yeah.
Yeah, basically, like, Malcolm puts the bad misogynist in place, so that we feel better when he's misogynistic later.
He does have his issues. Yeah, like, we didn't talk about Marina Baccarin's character.
I was gonna say, like, there's another character to crew who kind of joins later.
Persephone, honestly.
Well, no, because the job will be, half the reason we're Persephone, we're here to pick up a regular rentee of the ship.
Yeah,
she literally. This woman essentially.
She's a tenant.
Yeah, tenant of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we meet Inara, and Inara is a companion, which is kind of like a mix between a sex worker, geisha, sort of like.
Yeah, it's clearly about sex, but it's more sophisticated than just sex. And considering that this universe has a very Chinese influence, which, like, geishas are not Chinese. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing that we can talk about, right? The inspiration is like, it's like kind of 1/3 sci-fi, 1/3 Old West, and 1/3 or maybe even less than a third. But there is kind of this sort of pan-Asian influence that permeates a lot of it. Not that any of the cast members are Asian, which is, I think, one of the failings of this show.
We have a half Iroquois actress who I think is supposed to kind of like be the half Asian one of the group.
Yeah, but it's still interesting. They curse sometimes in like
Chinese,
in galactic language, which is just
Chinese.
Chinese.
The subtitle, to be fair, the subtitles call it galactic language. They never do, so it could be more a failure of subtitles.
Yeah, so they speak in Chinese sometimes to one another, especially when they curse, but also sometimes just normally when they say something, and it's clear sort of from context what the line is.
Yeah.
And then the show also has its own weird slang and like
we got humped.
Yeah, humped means screwed, I guess. They say goram instead of goddamn, which I think is interesting. They say shiny a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. Shiny is when things are good. Like when she gets, that's spoilers, I guess. But Kaylee gets shot in this episode. She's about to be. We're at about that point in the episode, and she says to Malcolm, "I'm shiny," when she's like feeling better again, or when she thinks she's feeling better again, but she's not so much better.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So we have lunch.
That's Inara, right? Yeah. And we have an awkward introduction between Inara and Book, and Malcolm is a big jerk during it. So that's the moment that you were talking about.
Yeah. So essentially, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
I think the main tension in the beginning is between the shepherd, Inara, and Malcolm.
Yeah.
The shepherd at first seems to be uncomfortable with the idea of being on the ship with Inara because of her profession.
Yeah.
Malcolm has no problem shaming her, essentially just straight up outing her in front of the shepherd to make the shepherd uncomfortable. Because clearly Malcolm is uncomfortable with both Inara and the shepherd. Basically Inara is the only person who seems to be mature about all of this.
Yeah, exactly. And
she doesn't have beef with anyone.
That's what's cool about Inara, right? Is that she really has like this, I don't know, mature guiding component to her. You know, it's like a big part of what she does as a companion is like help people find themselves too.
Yeah.
Like she sleeps with them, but then she gives them good life advice.
Yeah, clearly she knows she has to have good people skills to be good at her job.
Yeah. And because we see Malcolm kiss across during the Battle for
Yeah.
Serenity. I think we kind of, and the Battle of Serenity was obviously lost.
Yeah.
I think we kind of know why he has tension with Book, and he's got this whole romantic tension with Inara, which is most likely why he's uncomfortable with her being a companion.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so there's tension there, but there's also just general tension because we're scared that someone in the crew is gonna find this cargo, right?
Yeah. And before we know it, what does our pilot inform us of?
Oh
Malcolm.
yeah,
Malcolm, come here.
Yeah,
come to the cockpit.
You better come see this, Captain. That emergency, or not an emergency signal, but a signal's been broadcast from somewhere in the Firefly.
He managed to
the
jam
Alliance.
it, but we don't know to which degree.
We don't know how much got through before he jammed it, how identifiable they all are. But so the Alliance is coming for them, and they've got a mole on board. And so Malcolm heads straight for the hold, where no one is supposed to be. And who does he see there but Simon, the doctor? And so he decks him. And he's like, this is the spy.
And to be fair, the doctor had also asked a lot of questions about them because he is concerned about his cargo.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they lied, saying that they had to drop off some cargo, and they said it was medical equipment.
Yeah.
And immediately the doctor goes, what kind of medical equipment? And it looks like his product.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, we know that medical equipment is interesting to him for a different reason, which we will find out soon.
Yeah.
So Malcolm decks the doctor.
Yeah, decks the doctor. He's like,
pulls out a gun on him.
Pulls out a gun. He's like, I've got you. You know.
The shepherd shows up, looks at him ominous and said, I think you got the wrong man, Captain. And then we turn around.
And that guy with the dorky hair who kept bumping into stuff
is pointing a gun at Malcolm.
He's the mole. Which, if you're watching this for the second time like me, it's kind of obvious from the start because he's the only one who doesn't have any interesting character traits.
Yeah.
Like, about every character we've established interesting character traits at this point. This guy's only character trait is he keeps bumping into shit.
Basically, my first instinct was the doctor did it. But as soon as Malcolm went immediately to the doctor, I was like, well, it's not the doctor then.
Yeah.
Then it's the guy with the haircut, the dorky haircut.
So a guy with the dorky haircut says, put him up. I'm, by the law of the Alliance, I'm here. He's a Fed. He's a lawman.
Yeah, and Malcolm raises his hands and it's like,
damn,
all right.
This isn't my best day ever.
This is my best day ever. And then what does...
And then the guy says, Simon Tam, you are under arrest. Which is the doctor.
And the doctor raises his hands and Malcolm lowers them and goes like, what? Is there a reward?
Exactly. Which is awesome, right? He's just like, oh, I get off free. You're not actually here for me.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But quickly enough, it turns out that this Fed is a moron.
Yes, this Fed is a moron. He's super jumpy, he's super reactive, and when the rest of the crew enter the hold, he turns around and panics and shoots without looking.
It's not just that, to me. To me, the dumbest thing that he did was like starting to yell about how he is bringing them all in. They were harboring a smuggler, so as far as he's concerned, it really went to cop school.
Yeah, you're all criminals.
Yeah, it's like he's just broadcasting this when he's the only person on the ship, and like, he has a gun.
Yeah,
but there's more guns on the vessel. So even if that was his plan, this guy had a lot of time to think about how to do this.
Yeah, he was very bad at his job.
He was very bad at his job. Worst cop ever.
The rest of the crew runs on in. And as they run in, he gets so jumpy that he turns and he shoots without looking, and he shoots Kaylee in the stomach.
Yeah.
And which is obviously shocking, and the whole crew's very upset. And in that moment of confusion, the Fed gets overwhelmed, and so now we need to take care of Kaylee. And Simon says, that he won't operate Kaylee and he won't save her life unless they turn around the course of the ship so that they're going away from where the Alliance, if you don't run from the Alliance with me, right, I won't take care of Kaylee. And Malcolm is not happy with this at all. He really has almost no empathy for Simon, even though him and Simon are very similar positions.
Yeah, show is not subtle about...
Yeah, when Malcolm was running for himself, he's happy to run. But as soon as he needs to run for Simon, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. Anyways, they have a big standoff, and in the end, Malcolm is the one who blinks, and they switch courses, and
Simon operates on Kaylee.
And he takes care of her.
Yeah, the Book and the Fed are locked up together.
Yeah. because and the reason is Book wants to make sure the Fed doesn't get hurt by Jane, right? Because Jane is like, I'm gonna murder this guy immediately, and Book is like, no murder, please, right? Let's resolve this without violence, without murder. So it's not that Book is under any kind of suspicion or anything why he's getting locked up. He's going with the Fed for the Fed's protection.
And Malcolm doesn't want the Fed to be killed either.
Yeah.
Because killing a Fed would like increase,
puts a lot of heat.
It's a lot of heat.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're running away.
We're running away. It looks like Kaylee might pull through, but she might not pull through. It's like she's stable, but we don't know what's going to happen next. Jane gets to have an interview with the lawman. We get to find out what Jane's skill set is, which is basically the torture information out of this lawman.
Yeah, but he's not. I mean,
but he doesn't end up having to torture him at all.
Yeah.
He basically says to the lawman, so you tell me, what do they know about us? And the lawman looks at him and sort of anxiously says, well, they know everything about you. They know your name. They know what you look like. They know how many nose hairs you have. Mm-hmm. And Jane just looks at him and like sighs disappointedly and is like, God damn, they don't know anything, do they? I didn't even have to cut you.
Yeah.
He's like, I was gonna get an ear, which is kind of dark.
Yeah. And then the Fed makes him actually an offer. He says basically, hey, if you get me out of this, I can make sure that you get a reward because A, aiding me, and B, whatever that guy has in his giant ominous box of doom, the Alliance really wants that.
Yeah.
So,
which actually we skipped this part because he already knows at this point what's inside the box. I think this is because we just skipped ahead a little bit because Simon gets confronted basically immediately after he's done with Kaylee as to what is in that big.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
And Malcolm opens it up, even though Simon protests and says, no, don't do it, please. It's delicate medical equipment, whatever. Malcolm opens it up.
And it's the girl from the title credits who's in a box. Who's in a box in the credits. I remember noticing it being like, I guess she comes out of a box.
I guess she comes out.
And then we are opening the box. We're like, I wonder who this is, right? And then it does that depressurization, the liquid nitrogen streams out. And then what's in the box? It's the girl from the intro.
It's River Tam / Summer Glau. And Malcolm first suspects Simon of some kind of human trafficking, right? Either
he bought a wife.
Yeah, either he bought her as a wife or he's going to sell her to somebody. Yeah. But Simon explains over time, and there's a little bit more drama, but let's just say Simon explains with time that she's his sister, actually.
Yeah.
And that while he is very intelligent and he got his medical degree at a very young age and is very proficient, she is far, far smarter than even him, right? And that they both grew up as wealthy citizens in the center world, and they had all the money to have access to prestigious schools.
Classic less successful sibling. Like, she's great, but I am too.
Yeah, I'm great. She's just greater, but I want you to know all my shit before I tell you about any of her shit.
Yeah.
But she's like, apparently she's just a total savant. Like anything she touches, math, music, theoretical physics,
even dance. Oh my god, that line. Oh.
Which tells us that Joss Whedon's probably not good at dancing.
Yeah. Great at theoretical physics now.
It's just funny, yeah, because like
he dabbles
it's so much harder to be a savant at theoretical physics than it is to be a dance.
Not even like a savant, but like just like being middle of the road at dancing is so much easier than being like middle of the road at theoretical physics. Yeah. It's just the order of those things are in the wrong way.
Anyway, so she was such a genius. She went to a rare government-sponsored program that she was interested in. It was the most prestigious, the most challenging program, and she disappeared out of Simon's life. And her letters became less and less, and eventually he just got one letter from her that was clearly encrypted, encoded, and it was a secret message. And the secret message was, "They're hurting us. Get me out."
Yeah.
So he embarked on a whole criminal plan. Simon is very bad at crime. He only has money. That's all he's got. But he manages to break her out and have her in this trunk. And we're literally, when we see him at the start of the episode, he's essentially days after this heist. I mean, he is not in the clear at all, right? There's a lot of heat on him. And he's
probably not feeling very good about.
Yeah, and he's trying to get River somewhere where he and her can live in peace, right, in the Outer Rim or something like that, away from the law, away
because
from
the
the
Alliance
government.
is still looking after her because she's some
her-
kind of asset there. Yeah.
Yeah, her brain is valuable. She was part of this program. Money, money, money. Resources, resources, resources. Right? She's very special. So
They'll probably use her to make an AI or something.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
the
know.
1990s, I guess. This is how they would do it. Just like take the super smart brain, make a copy.
I don't know if you remember, but one of the things you guessed during the episode is actually 100% correct. But I don't know if you remember what theory it was. So and I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you discover it. So yeah. At this point, we still have this.
Oh, that she's like telekinetic or telepathic.
Who knows?
Who knows?
That was one of the theories that you said during the episode.
Yeah, I think the only one.
You had many theories.
I had many theories. That's true. I actually was very close to even before I checked her character name.
Mm.
I was like, I think it's his sister.
Mm.
Just because we already have like romantic couple, we already have father-daughter, we don't have siblings.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And so we still have all this illegal cargo in the hold from the start of the mission, and we need to sell it. So,
and amongst the people who were brought up as potential buyers, there is.
Oh, what is her name? Patience?
That's a little convenient of a name, maybe.
I think it is Patience.
Yeah, it's an old lady that lives on the Outer Rim and has previously, at the last meeting with Malcolm, has shot her.
Yeah,
shot him.
Exactly. It's Patience. Yeah, that's her name. Yeah, an old lady who shot Malcolm the last time he saw her. So someone he's not on the best of terms with. And this is again a running theme of Firefly, right? Is that you have to make do with suboptimal situations, right? We've got the feds on our tail. We don't have a lot of money. We have to stop and Whitefall this planet. There's nobody on this, or actually it's a moon. There's nobody on this moon who's willing to do business with us, or who is alive anymore, or who has the money to afford this kind of thing. So we have to deal with Patience, even though we don't want to.
And at some point, we wish we had the feds on our tail, because who do we have on our tail?
Oh yeah, because then Reavers show up. Reavers are like evil space bandits, as far as we know. Yeah. I can tell you, now that we've seen the episode, I feel like it's not a huge spoiler. They're actually much more like zombies. Like they're like completely, like passionate zombies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not slow, but they're much more beast-like and like.
Yeah, they're like really inhuman. Like they're really truly not like.
They're like devolved humans who like operate as like pirates if pirates didn't care about the money but cared about raping you until you're dead. What's the second thing?
Mutilating your body.
Mutilating your body and then stitching your skin to your clothes, if you're very, very lucky, in that order.
Yeah.
That's a line from...
Yeah, that's a line.
That's how they're characterized.
That's the line Zoe gives Simon to explain. And yeah, I just think it's a great like one-line characterization. Right?
Yeah.
Is like, and if we're very, very lucky, they will do it in that order.
So the Reavers pass by.
Yeah. And they don't want anything from us.
Yeah.
Yay, we're good. We're in the clear.
Yeah. And like, just to be clear, like when we see the Reavers pass by, their ship is so much bigger.
Yeah, it's so much bigger, and it's also really fucked up. It glows with this internal light, and through the dialogue and technobabble, we're kind of told that they have a nuclear reactor powering this thing, but like all the shields are up. Like they don't give a fuck. So they're just like getting irradiated.
Their radioactivity is like bouncing in there. Yeah. That's one thing that I thought about. Was like, first, how do they reproduce if they keep getting irradiated? They should all be sterile. And second, like who manages their tech?
The Reavers are one of the inherent mysteries of the setting, and I cannot tell you.
Because like I mean, I don't want to look.
There are answers and solutions to this. I don't know if they would satisfy you, but they don't come until the Serenity movie. Like this was the Reavers were. You don't notice it at first, but then eventually, when you watch Serenity, you realize the Reavers are the long-term payoff of the plot. Who are they? Where do they come from? So yeah, I can't tell you anything about them, but yeah, it is weird. It is weird. Where do they come from, right? Who does manage their tech? They seem like almost too good to be true, right? They're just like these evil demons who live on the outside of space. Like I'm saying from a writer's standpoint, right? They're like villains who are like too good to be true. Yeah,
I almost had to think of like I think the orcs in Warhammer you told me about, where like. In Warhammer, the magic system allows them to like use tech because they believe that tech works. They
believe it works. Their collective faith in their technology makes their technology work, even though it's like a tin can with string.
Like the fact that they painted their stuff red because they believe that it will go faster even though it's not true,
And then
but
it
their
does go
collective
faster.
belief makes it so that it goes faster if it's painted red.
And then they paint things purple, they think it's sneaky color. So painting things purple makes you sneakier, even if you're like on a field of green and the purple sticks out.
Yeah, that's
That's kind of how the Reavers feel. But so the Reavers don't want anything from us, so we land on Whitefall, we set up the deal with Patience, and we have a little preliminary negotiation with her over the intercom of the ship, and we realize pretty quickly she's going to set us up and try to steal from us, because she doesn't even haggle over the price. She just says, sure, come on down, let's do a deal. And so we go into the job with Patience expecting that she's going to betray us. And so Malcolm points out the parts of the terrain that he thinks she's going to use to attack them, where there should be snipers. Jane goes off to earn his keep to knock out these snipers and take over their position, which he does. But he's got the sights of his gun trained on Malcolm, which makes it, and he smiles. And that makes us suspicious because, again, he was offered that deal, and the scene cuts. We don't know if he took the deal or not.
Yeah, and also, to what do we cut? What is going on in the cell?
You're absolutely right. After this little setup of this standoff, and before Patience arrives, we cut back to the ship, and the Fed is cutting his way out of his bonds. He's got a little blade. He's got a little X-Acto knife blade. Yeah. Where did he get that from? He comes charging out of his cell at just the second Book is coming to warn him that he thinks Jane might hurt him or someone else might hurt him, and he brutally beats up Book. I mean, he hits him over the head really hard, so he lands on the ground, and then he hits him twice more in the head.
Just to make sure he stays down.
Yeah, and so
just crazy to the one person.
Person, right? So I feel like this is I feel like the episode, in a great way, is very aware that the Fed is terrible at his job and is not a nice person, right?
He's not a nice guy.
And he charges into the hold, and he tries...
Guns blazing.
Yeah,
basically.
Guns blazing.
Or guns pointing very aggressively.
And this was something I thought was unusual. Did they pay this off? They show him putting one gun in his pants and then holding another gun.
Yeah, he basically gets all the weapons he can put his hands on.
But do we ever pay off that like a gun gets knocked out of his hand and then he pulls out another one?
I don't remember.
Because I thought I noticed that. I was like, wow, this is kind of a Chekhov's gun. They're showing us he doesn't have one, he has two. And I was like, well, this must come up.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it coming up ever at the end.
So he gets to the med bay where both girls are held.
Yeah. Kaylee's waking up. We skipped this part.
She's awake.
Yeah, she's awake. Malcolm fakes out the doctor for a second that Kaylee actually died, and he had a really stern conversation with the doctor where he's like, if Kaylee dies, I'm throwing you out the airlock.
Yeah.
So like Malcolm was not a big fan of the doctor and treated him extremely hostilely, and the rest of the crew is very aware that this is not right? The rest of the crew are like, that's murder, Captain. I would like to take a vote. I don't think we should do that. This is morally wrong. Like, multiple people are telling Malcolm, and Malcolm is just like, no, it is what it is, right? Like, I'm in charge. It is what it is. So this is, I think, Malcolm's darkest like moment in this episode for sure. Like, but anyways, so Simon thinks for a second he's gonna get ejected out of the airlock, and then no, Kaylee's actually fine.
Yeah, because Malcolm is like, he died, and then cut to like Malcolm laughing it up with the others.
He's just laughing his ass.
Like, they're all there like, you're such an asshole, and like, But
anyway, sorry. Back to the Fed. The Fed takes River Tam hostage and tells Kaylee that the next bullet he's going to shoot at her is going to go through his throat. Go through her throat.
She basically apologizes for shooting her earlier, but he also says, if you do anything to stop me the next time, I'll shoot with intention.
Which is just crazy. It's just, this guy's just such a jerk. It's just such an asshole. So, anyways, he runs to the hold with River. He has a standoff with Simon, and Simon has a gun, but he's not a killer. He doesn't know how to use it. He can't bring himself to use it on the Fed. Cut back. Oh, and emergency, the Reavers actually followed us to this place. Yeah. So now they're right behind us. Well, this emergency is mounting. Cut back to Patience. Patience, I thought that was really funny, by the way. Mm-hmm. Patience rides up with way too many dudes than they need for this amount of cargo. And the cargo that they stole has been buried. So like it's like exchange, we give you the location, you give us the money kind of situation. And we learn that this cargo, which looks like copper bars.
Yeah, it's very much looks like a classic Western. It's food.
It's actually food. It's actually food with like immune supplements and vitamins and stuff thrown in. So that was a fun little detail. She throws over the money to Malcolm. And he's like, all right, well, I guess that's the deal. And she's like, yep. And he's like, okay. And she's like, uh-huh.
Does he
And he's
give her
like-
the location?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
And then he's like, I'd appreciate it if you turned around and rode away first.
She shows up with a lot of gunpowder and a sniper,
Yeah, exactly.
which
But
Jamie takes out.
yeah, Jane takes out the sniper. And so he's like, I would appreciate it if you guys turned around and rode out of here first. And she's like, yeah, the only problem is there's like a slight hitch with that. And he's like, look, we both got paid. Don't make it any more complicated. And she's like, yeah, but I have a rule, which is don't let go of money you don't have to, which is why I run this moon and you're still running your stupid shit or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then we have a shootout. We have a Western shootout.
Yeah, Jamie kind of like saves the day with his sniper. Jane saves the day by shooting.
Yeah, he shoots a bunch of people.
She shoots a lot of
with
people.
Sniper position.
Yeah, Zoe. No, Zoe's the name of the actress.
No, Zoe's the name of the character.
Okay, she gets shot.
Yeah. But she has armor.
She has armor. She's fine. At the end, Malcolm manages to like take the others out with the help of Jane.
And then he shoots Patience's horse so that it falls over onto her.
Yeah, at her age, I think she's dead.
Yeah, maybe. The
Like,
horse
she's-
really does fully fall on her body.
And like she's alone
yeah,
at this point. She has to get that horse off her.
But the implication is that she's not. The implication is that Malcolm is so honorable that even after being betrayed, all he does is go over to her, he takes back the money, and he says, I do the job, I get paid. And then they steal the remaining horses from the dead guys.
And then they steal the horses, but I guess
but
that's
there's 6
fine.
horses there. They only take 3 of them. So
Yeah.
there's 3. One of them got shot. There's 2 more left
For her.
for Patience to take back into town. And they ride, charging back to the Firefly as quick as they can, because obviously, I mean, Patience is going to come after them if she's given the chance.
But more importantly, much more urgently, the Reavers are coming.
Oh, and they know this. Yeah,
They know this.
right. They get told from the ship that the Reavers are coming.
So at this point, they walk in.
Mhm.
They walk into Simon and the Fed standoff.
Yeah.
Malcolm just pulls out the gun and casually murders the Fed. He's
Just-
like, we don't have time for this.
No hesitation, no blinking. He just hops off the horse, walks right on over, pulls out the gun, shoots him in the head before the
Yeah.
Fed can react.
Yeah.
I mean, it does make Malcolm seem like kind of a badass, I
Yeah.
have to say.
Yeah, and like the aim, because the guy is holding
Yeah.
River hostage.
He's got a gun to River
Yeah.
Tam's temple. Yeah.
I mean, I guess at that point in Malcolm's head, it's like, we don't have time to deal with this.
Yeah.
So, like, however this goes,
Yeah.
we're all gonna die if I don't
Yeah.
take him out now. So, like, then him and Jade just casually, like, no conversation, cut to them taking the Fed's body, just dumping him out.
It takes less than 30 seconds for Malcolm to walk up, shoot the guy in the head, him and Jane grab him, throw him out the back of the ship.
While the doors
Doors are closing and the ship's taking off to get out of here before the Reavers come. We have a dog fight in the air. It's very
Yeah.
exciting.
If the Rivers catch us, they might come.
No.
So much. Hopefully, it's the thing number 1.
We fly in the air. Kaylee, even though she's still not feeling 100%, is in the machine room and she's coaching Jane and Book on how to do the things in the engine that need to happen so we have the power we need in the fight. We pull a crazy Ivan.
What's the name of the pilot again?
Wash.
Wash.
Yeah, we get to
Wash
see-
pulls off a crazy maneuver.
Yeah, we get to Wash do his maneuvers, and we pull off a maneuver called a Crazy Ivan, where basically the thrusters on the Firefly ship just like kind of reverse, and it like flips in midair in dead drop, and then falls back down to the planet going full speed.
Yeah, and releases like a huge amount of like it's like fuel to produce a giant burst in an oxygen atmosphere, which create an explosion which propels their ship forward and propels the Reavers backwards.
Yeah.
And then they do that super high speed propulsion thrust that I said.
Yeah.
And they basically
they get away. We get away from the planet safe, and we celebrate, and we're excited and we're happy. Zoe steals Wash and says to Malcolm, "Please take the helm. I need this man to rip all my clothes off my body."
Yeah.
To which Wash replies, "Work, work, work," in a humorous way. And Malcolm takes the helm, and in a moment of quiet, Simon comes to talk to him, and the captain invites Simon and River to stay on the ship permanently because the ship needs a medic. And Simon says, "How do I know you're not going to kill me in my sleep, though? I mean, he was so aggressive to him earlier in the episode, you know?" And Malcolm says, "You don't know me, so I'll tell you this once. If I kill you,
You'll be awake,
yeah.
looking at me.
You'll be
armed.
awake, facing me, and you'll be armed. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. The Firefly, the Serenity is busted up. We didn't make a lot of money, but just enough to keep on flying. You know,
Yeah.
that's not much, but that's all we need. And that's the end of the episode. That's the end of episode 1 of Firefly. So, what do you think?
I thought it was very well scripted. I didn't realize how long it was.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, this is a movie.
Yeah.
This is not an episode of a TV show. This is a movie. And it's also written like a movie. Like, this episode does not waste any time.
Yeah.
It's tightly packed. Exposition is mostly delivered in an efficient and subtle way.
Yeah.
It has its moments.
Yeah, of course.
Like, when they get on the ship for the first time, like, the way we characterize the daughter figure.
Mm-hmm. Haley.
Yeah, that's very ham-fisted.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess we're
Yeah.
like commenting on characters as if we're meeting them for the first time or like second time, you know.
Yeah.
She is so cheerful, isn't she?
Yeah,
It's like-
exactly. Captain, can you shut Kaylee up? She's being too optimistic again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jane. I don't think there's anything in the verse that can keep her from being optimistic.
Yeah, it's like, thanks, Joss Whedon, for telling me that.
Yeah, it's like,
Anyways.
you probably what Malcolm would say, like, come on, Jane, you know how she is.
Yeah.
You know, and then we would just, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, are we doing this argument again? It's
Yeah.
the 100th.
I thought it was very interesting. I want to bring up, like, before we started watching, I brought up Cowboy Bebop as an anime that also blends like this kind of like scoundrelly Western tale style with sci-fi.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because after you pointed out all the like Chinese inspiration, I thought it is if they really didn't like also look at Cowboy Bebop and were like, I want a little bit of Asia.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think it's interesting. One of the things I like about Firefly is how very much it's not a far-flung Earth so far removed from today, right?
Yeah.
It's I heard that Joss Whedon said this in an interview that's like, in the future we have all the same problems that we have now, right? We're just in a different place. We're in space now.
yeah,
And it really, you feel that, right? You feel sort of this kind of mixed culture between sort of this Pan-Asian and this Western thing somehow coming together. And it definitely feels like it comes from our Earth, and the technology is not so far removed from our Earth. We're not doing teleporter beams and basically FTL magic or anything like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, obviously there is some amount of magic to the
Yeah.
science tech, but it all feels clunky and rusty and used, and it does what you think it would do,
it's
right?
kind of like the technology in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It feels grounded. It feels rough. It
Yeah.
feels like convoluted, like mechanical. It has a very analog nature.
Yeah,
to
and
it.
it feels like the problems. It feels like it doesn't fix the problems of the setting. Right?
Not at
This
all.
isn't. There's no replicators here. People live in poverty. They deal with medical issues. They deal with transport.
It's interesting. Well, for once, I was thinking now. Also, Star Wars does like samurai and like East Asia, but
Yeah.
also in space, but also with cowboys.
Yeah,
So it really feels like there was a whole vibe going on at
Yeah.
some point. It was like, if you have to do your space western, you've got to put a little bit of samurai of Asia in there. You can't
space, the final frontier.
Spasian. But
Alright.
they call it galactic, so might as well call it Spasian.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. I mean, I don't think that they thought it through this much,
Mhm.
but it's interesting that there's like two cultural spheres.
Mm.
What seems to be the dominant one is like the Western
Mm.
European American
I mean,
style.
if the
And then-
cast is anything to go by, right?
Yeah. And then there is this like kind of subculture,
Yeah.
this Pan-Asian subculture.
Yeah.
And then we get very few, but we do get just like a brink
Mm.
of like North African to
Mm.
like Arabic costumes in the back.
Yeah.
And like it kind of paints a picture of who got to go on those generation ships.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
was allowed to get on top and who was not. Like I thought about it later.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know how much the episodes and the movie will ever delve into that part of the backstory,
Mhm.
but it sure is an interesting bit
Yeah.
of like hidden world building.
Yeah.
Like certain cultures survived and some didn't.
Yeah. No, I agree, right? So I think it's interesting, right? The premise is it's 500 years in the future, but it just feels by looking at the technology, and they talk about generation ships taking them out. In fact, there's actually a whole monologue that is given at some point that is actually a great description of like the setting and
What
how
happened?
it works. So I think I might just read it for a second, but it wasn't in the episode.
Sure.
Which is, after the Earth was used up, we found a new solar system, and hundreds of new Earths were terraformed and colonized. The central planets formed the Alliance and decided all the planets had to join under their rule. There was some disagreement on that point. After the war, many of the independents who had fought and lost drifted to the edges of the system, far from Alliance control. Out here, people struggled to get by with the most basic technologies. A ship would bring you work, a gun would help you keep it. A captain's goal was simple: find a crew, find a job, keep flying. And this is an introductory narrative for the show that Book apparently gives, but it's not on my DVD, so I don't know. But I thought it was actually.
Is it in episode 1?
I mean, it says introduction narrative. I would have expected to be in episode 1.
Sure. I mean, maybe in episode 2, that's how every episode starts, right? Episode 1 doesn't tell you that, it conveys that.
I know that every episode doesn't start with narration, but maybe episode 2 starts with that. Because episode 1 is so weird.
It's a movie.
Because, episode 1 is just a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I said, that's I think that world building I do love about Firefly, because it just makes it feel like unique and interesting in its own thing, and it captures my imagination. It just feels plausible, right?
Yeah, it definitely feels like a setting that has been like thought through.
Yeah.
From a world building cultural point of view, and like technology wise, I would say like the world building is like hard enough.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's like when we get into the nitty gritty of how the ship's engine works, we start to gleam the cube or whatever, right? But like,
but like, there's no bullshit FTL. There's no. I'm interested. Yeah, I am actually interested in continuing and figuring out what's going on, especially because it's so short, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this is a show that I might actually come back to. It's interesting. One thing that I want to talk about is it's interesting how I would be very curious. One of the characters I'm most interested in is the companion.
Mm-hmm. Inara.
Yeah, because like she's clearly written with the intention of like kind of presenting you a character like this in a different light than what you might expect.
Yeah.
And like, she's very motherly, she's very protective, she has a lot of dignity, she is very intelligent.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like take shit or doesn't act like a femme fatale at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly a job for her, and like she knows how to keep it professional. And like, Malcolm has a problem with it, but like the show doesn't make it clear that it's his problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's his problem, right? And the priest has a problem. Actually, we didn't talk about this at all because it's just character stuff.
Yeah.
But she and the priest actually spend a lot of time together, bonding.
Yeah.
Like, she ends up helping him. Like, she ends up providing him with guidance.
Yeah.
When in the beginning it looks like he's coming to kind of like try to save her soul.
Yeah.
Never really tries to. Like, he's not pushy about it.
Yeah.
She asks if she's here to lecture him, and he says, if you want to, I have some lectures for you. But like, he's not there to lecture her.
Yeah, exactly. And he plays it off in a joking way. He's like, well, I came to bring you dinner, but if you want lectures, I've got 3 prepared. One even has lepers, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's clearly played for jokes. I think in the further episodes, they're very much the spiritual heart, right, of the crew, right? And she just comes at it from a different angle, right, than he does.
It's funny because traditionally the heart of like your typical 5-man band is like the woman, like all traditional media, because usually there would be only one woman. And who's going to carry the emotional? Who's going to be the emotionally mature one? The man?
Amongst all these scarred men who can't speak? No, obviously not. So
obviously it's the woman. You know, and like, by having cast with multiple women, the job doesn't have to go to her.
Yeah.
So for example, I keep forgetting her name.
Kaylee.
She also feels like she would be the heart, but now that you tell me that that Elara is more the heart.
All right. Well, so what do I mean by heart, right? Like, I mean, Kaylee is like the heart in the sense of like she's the kid, right?
She's the innocence.
But like exactly,
she's the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, and Inara and Book are like the guiding presence, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're the wisdom scores on board, right? And Simon says, you know, the intelligence and the charisma is all, well, Simon and Zoe are the intelligence, and then the charisma is all with Malcolm. I think it's definitely interesting.
Yeah,
And I
all
really
I wanted
like,
to say is like, it's interesting that like they gave this role to a prostitute.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think the crew is really captivating in that sense, right? In a lot of ways, they're the classic Western crew, right? They're the doctor, the outlaw, the sex worker, the preacher man, right? And then okay, we're in space, so we have to have an engineer, right?
Yeah.
And River Tam is different and doesn't fit into this mold. So I'm not saying they all fit into this mold, but I'm just saying a lot of the classic Western characters are here on this
Absolutely.
crew, but in a new, interesting way, right? Like Inara is not the classic Western, just like the sex worker, whatever character,
Yeah.
right? She's very interesting in her own,
And Malcolm is charismatic and scoundrelly, but he's also really dark.
and he's honorable, right? He's
Yeah.
got like this ex-soldier's honor to
Mhm.
him, right? And Book, right? He's the preacher man, but he's not rigid, right? We can see even in episode 1 that he quickly becomes
conflicted.
flexible, and is like becomes more about the spirit of the script rather than the letter of the script.
Yeah.
There's a great line later on in the series at one point where he says, "The good book is very clear on murder. It's not as clear on kneecaps." So
Yeah, I get it. I get what kind of character. Yeah, no, it's interesting to me. While I was watching this, also I was thinking like, I can imagine,
Mhm.
especially looking back at like a lot of like your work,
Mhm.
I can see how like this is bleeding a lot into your DMing
Oh yeah.
and your writing. I was like, oh, this is where he gets that. It's like I'm looking at the source.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Oh,
it's
for
like-
sure. When we started the Heart and Steel campaign, I was seriously considering, like, in session 1, the plan fully was to play
this
the
episode.
title theme song of this campaign, and then things
This
got in the
campaign, you
way.
mean this show?
Yeah, of this
But,
show.
you
sorry.
know, there we are.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, you said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, no, and I
But
think
no, this is such a
especially-
Blades in the Dark. This
Yeah,
is such a
yeah.
that, right? No, I really enjoy it, and it's really like it's really good at what it wants to do.
Mhm.
Like I think the best media tends to do that. Like no piece of media will be perfect.
Yeah, but it knows what it
But
wants
like
to do.
yeah, exactly. The pieces of media are good at what they want to do, and they
Yeah.
know what they're not good at, and like they make it work anyways. That's when it works the best. And yeah, I mean, again, it's like if you watched, I don't know, The Mandalorian, and you had never heard of space western,
Yeah.
and then you watched a movie by Sergio Leone, you're like, oh, this is the source. This is me watching Firefly, like looking back at your campaign, and like pointing the finger.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to get out of the city at some point and get more into the western.
What are you talking about now?
My campaign.
You're talking about your campaign. Shut up, dude. We're gonna have an episode for that. This is Firefly.
This is Firefly. All right. I mean, I think we've talked about it enough. Do you have anything in particular you want to address? Otherwise, it's just time for the final question.
No, I think that if I do like keep watching and finish it,
Well, that's the final question.
then
So, final question: is it a watch or a botch? Are we going to keep watching this?
I think it's definitely a watch.
Yeah.
And like, if you want to do another episode on Firefly, I want to watch the whole thing.
Mhm.
I think I would be happy to, because probably by then I'll have more things to say. These characters look interesting,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that we'll have every episode. That will have like maybe like a little bit of backstory about, and it will focus on each character. So they will have an episode for every character. So by the end of the first 8 to 9 episodes, we have focused on each and one of them. I'm sure we're gonna go through that.
I can't wait to talk to you about like one joke in particular, which I just think is like one of the funniest, which has to do with the special place, and they call it the special place. So I hope you'll recognize it in the episode, because eventually I want to talk to you about it. It's so funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a watch for me too. Like, I actually enjoyed it a lot, more than I thought I was going to. I was like, I'm really having fun with this. I'm really enjoying this. So I think I might watch it again. I think I might watch it again and go all the way up to episode 14.
Like, I mean, you already watched it, so you're saying like rewatching this was
Yeah.
more fun than you thought it would.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I might rewatch the whole thing. Obviously some episodes are better, some are worse, but I think I really enjoyed it. And it is, I think we can both join the call together. Too soon. Why was this canceled?
Too soon. Why was this cancelled? Hey, listen. Maybe by episode 14, I'd be like, I got it.
You'll be like, this went downhill fast.
Oof. Those last episodes, like Inara doing the whole sexy moves on everyone.
Yeah.
Why is she trying to seduce Why is she trying to seduce the sink? It's not the person. Why is she grinding on it? That's what Francis Ford Coppola would want.
That is what he would want. Yeah, I think I would be really curious if you do watch the rest of it and if you watch Serenity, how you feel about it. Because I feel personally like Serenity is a very bad movie, but I'm so happy it exists because I want to know, right? Like it's
Yeah.
I
I want to start with just like I want to stand by what I said earlier off mic.
Mhm.
I think it's a bad idea to call your first episode and your final movie Serenity, especially with the hindsight that the first episode is the length of a movie. There's two products called Serenity, Firefly, or Firefly, Serenity, and they're both an hour and 30 minutes long, and that's insane.
Well, I guess I just don't think they were thinking about that at the time. But yeah, I mean I feel like the first episode is just pilot, whatever. Don't pay attention. But yeah,
No, the first episode has to be called after the ship. That's how you do a movie. That's how you do a show like this.
that's how you do a show like this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Firefly. That's our first impressions. For me, my second impressions, but of episode 1, we had a great time. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Do I have anything you want to plug? Well, it's been a while since I did my last plug, hasn't it?
So long.
So long. Have you heard about Megalopolis?
Megalopolis.
Yeah.
I have. In fact, I've watched it with a good friend.
No, but Francis Ford Coppola made a movie called Apocalypse Now. And Apocalypse Now went on to inspire a movie called Kong Skull Island. I'm plugging Kong Skull Island.
I have seen that movie. It's okay.
I think it's definitely a movie that requires you to shut your brain off. And the first 15 to 20 minutes were kind of boring. Not gonna lie. But I think when that movie, like when it locks in, it locks in. That movie is like, I think it's a really piece of love. It's another movie that I think does what it wants to do well, except for the first 20 minutes. I think it spent way too much time doing stuff that it didn't really want to do. It felt like it needed to do. And the movie maker is basically, movie director is basically like, and not an amateur, but it's like this was his first, like, not his first movie ever, but it was basically his first big movie. Then he never did another one.
Just, he was sick of the business.
Yeah, I think he
came in, makes a movie, refuses to elaborate.
Exactly, makes a movie, basically defines Kong for our generation, because that version of Kong is the Kong forever now, like the current one, and then he left because I had fun with it. But no, I think like artistically, it's a very good movie. Like,
is Kong Skull Island the older one with Jack Black, or the
no, that's the Peter
one?
Jackson one.
Okay.
No. Kong Skull Island is like the one that leads into Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I'm just surprised because I think the older one is better.
I mean, the other one is probably like a better movie, like in general. But like this one has a certain like vibrancy and like badass energy to it.
You just like the bugs with the bamboo legs.
I do like the bugs with the bamboo legs. I love them, of course, right? But Peter Jackson has a disgusting scene with the maggots, which I loved as a kid.
Yeah,
when like the guys get like all eaten up by giant bugs.
Oh yeah, because the bugs are so big.
Yeah, the bugs are
so awful and so big. Oh,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. You just brought it back.
Yeah. Yay! Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But yeah, but like that's also it's Spielberg. So like there's certain like I don't know
pedigree or expectation.
Yeah, pedigree to the movie, like also in a good way, but like it's moderate in its excesses of having a giant Godzilla fighting T-Rexes. And I think that Kong Skull Island goes full out. And I enjoy that, and I appreciate that.
I'm going to continue on the path from last week. I've decided I'm just going to start plugging books for a while that I like.
Sure.
Last time I did a history book, so this time I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to do some fantasy. The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I enjoyed it a lot as a kid. It is a little dry. It is a little weird.
What is it about?
It's the story of Arthur Pendragon and the Knights of Camelot and Merlin and all of that. And I don't think I ever fully finished it, but I read it as a kid and I enjoyed it a lot. And if you feel like modern fantasy is maybe stale, is maybe somewhat in a rut, I suggest you read this because it's like a little bit older. It's Arthurian legend is the progenitor of a lot of our mythology. So like, get a look at what we were doing earlier on, right? And there's really interesting scenes where characters. The one I remember the most vividly is a character who learns from being turned into different animals, and so this is
it's funny. That reminds me of like that's what the Disney movie kind of does.
Yeah. For sure.
Turns him into an animal a lot.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it's Arthur being turned into an animal by Merlin or Merlin's just turning into animals to learn.
In the movie,
there's this moment where characters keeps turning into different animals to learn from each of their senses, and it is fantasy. You read it and you're like, this is fantasy, but it's not your typical modern fantasy, right? It's a little bit just more quirky and weird, right?
It's more fairy tale, like it's focused on the moral and the message, and it's not about how the lightning sword does more damage than the fire sword.
Exactly, right? It's not. You're right. Yeah, it's not as grounded as like as like a Sandersonian sort of something.
Cool. It's interesting that Arthurian the Arthurian mythos is like the most associated with like Great Britain, but came from France, and that Tolkien wanted to explicitly write a mythology for Great Britain that would be independent of like that foreign mythology that is brought, and to instead develop something more authentic, more rooted in what he perceived to be authentic British stuff. But of course, everyone's an immigrant at some point, especially on an island.
Yeah. That's crazy. I didn't know that. And at first I was like, wow, that's kind of close-minded versus the French. But then I think about how he fought the French in World War I, and I'm like...
Well, I mean, it's not that he doesn't like... No, he didn't fight the French.
Wasn't he at the Battle of the Somme?
Yeah, but he was British. French and British were on the same side.
You're right. Yeah.
What the fuck?
No, you're right.
No. His problem was not like that. It's explicitly French. Like it was imported by the French. But his problem would have been like, this is like German. This is from somewhere else, and it was brought to us. And it's So not like it. No, not original. Not original enough.
Alrighty. Well,
C.S. Lewis was just like, dude, what about centaurs from ancient Greece? And Santa Claus.
Santa Claus is real. Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Alrighty, that'll just about do it for episode Schmenity Schmen of the Friendly Orbit podcast.
30?
Is it just 30?
I think it's just 30.
Damn.
We turned 30.
30 is a lot. We never even talked about 26 was half a year, which is pretty cool. Anyways, we're at 30 already. We're way beyond that.
26 is also my age.
Well, okay. But that's not really part of this streak, if you think about it.
No, it's not.
All right. Anyways, that'll just about do it for episode 30 of the Friendly Orbit podcast. You can find us on youtube.com at... I just fuck this up every time. You could find us on youtube.com/@afriendlyorbit, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
It's all right, Ceres. I'll talk to you later. No, it goes in. It all goes in. All right, Ceres, I'll talk to you later. And all of our fellow Voyagers will see you out there amongst the stars. Nailed it.
All right. That'll just about do it for episode 30 of the podcast. You can find us at youtube.com/@afriendlyorbit, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're feeling frisky and you want to leave us some feedback, send us your astral echoes at afriendlyorbit@gmail.com, which is all one word.
I said my bit. I stand by it. Bye.
I'm still going to edit this.
All right, Ceres, I'll talk to you later. And to all of our fellow Voyagers, we'll see you out there amongst the stars.
In the outer rim.
In the outer rim.